Hey everybody, Mark, Dr. Deadwax here. Time for day 23 of the Inbox Challenge, and today's numbers were picked by TheAdventChronicles. Daniel, the man with 4 names. Not going to say them all here on YouTube, Daniel. Don't worry. Daniel picked 4 numbers, and I'm going to do all 4 records. So, let's get started. First record, the Ecstasy of Rita Joe. And the Ecstasy of Rita Joe is a soundtrack to a play. This play was first produced in 1969 in Canada. It was the first play to deal, or the first play, I think it was the first play to deal with, but maybe it was the first play that was at all popular. But it was the first, let's just say it was the first play. It was the first play to deal with Native Canadian themes and representing Native Canadians in theater. It's the story of a young woman who leaves the reservation and goes to live in the city, and her interactions with, let's just call it white society, as opposed as a Native Canadian woman. Her interactions with institutions like the courts and the church, and deals with issues of vagrancy and prostitution, and ultimately her death. So this is a soundtrack to a play, and the play was not linear. It was its storyline was like compressed, and it was told in song and short speaking passages and things like that. So, and it jumps around from past to present. And there's the inside of the gatefold. This play was then produced in Ottawa. It's the opening of, I think it was the Museum of Civilization or the Museum of Culture. It was like the first play produced in the theater that was in that museum. This is on the Jabula label. Then the Winnipeg Ballet did an interpretation of this, and then a record was made of it after that. So I think the record originally came out in maybe '74. This is a third pressing, and this came out in 1980. So kind of surprising that so many pressings were made of, like that 3 pressings were made. Not ever released on CD that I don't know of. TLC-T in the Deadwax for the Lacquer Channel, Toronto. That would have been where the plate was cut. It's an interesting listen. I mean, it's a play on vinyl. You know, something that is interesting and, let's say, captivating in many ways on first listen, but not the sort of thing that one would necessarily go back to over and over again as one would music. Even though it's very musical and some of the music is really well done. And Paul Horn on flute would be the most well-known musician who was on here. And Anne Mortifee, she was she played the native girl and played guitar. And Chief Dan George was on this record as well. He's a famous Native Canadian or Native American actor. So, culturally, it's a fantastic document. It's very well done. It's not probably something I will listen to more than 1 or 2 more times in my life. Next, George Benson, In Your Eyes. No, this is not In Your Eyes, the light, the heat. In Your Eyes, I am complete. It's not Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes, sadly. It's Michael Masters and Dan Hill's In Your Eyes. This is on Korean label Warner Brothers, 1983. This is a horrible, slick, overproduced, malty, syrupy piece of Dreckenschleck. Came even with a lyric inner if you wanted to sing along to the loveliness that it is. I could not take very much of this. I did not make it through this, and this is not staying in my world. But it's a perfect copy, so it'll go to somebody who likes it. Next is Supersax, and this is Supersax 3, which is Supersax plays bird with strings. So Supersax were a kind of a, I mean, the music I would almost describe as stage band slash swing band. Everything's very tight. Everything's coming off of. There's no improvisation here. It's jazz, but it's stage band jazz. Everything's coming off, you know, everything's coming off sheets, and they're brilliant. I mean, brilliant, super tight playing. So it's 2 tenors, 2 altos, and a baritone saxophone interpreting the music of Bird. And excuse me. And then there's like always like a rhythm section behind them, and usually a couple brass instruments. And this time there's the inclusion of strings to work with this concept. Supersax did like 6 albums or 8 albums of this kind of interpreting Bird. It reminds me of when I played saxophone in a stage band in high school. It's that kind of music. It's swinging, it's good, it's just not necessarily overly captivating in the way that more improvisational based jazz is for me. Kind of stuff, you know, for dancing to, or it would be great to go see this kind of stuff live. It's brilliantly well done. It's like, not to take anything away from what it is, because it's really well done. This is on the orange label Capitol. This has mastered by Capitol and Wally in the Deadwax's. So this is another Wally Traugott pressing. We've talked about Wally a lot lately. He keeps coming up and coming back. And today's record has the interesting part of the Deadwax's. I don't know if I can get it to show, but it's probably not going to show. It has a mark for the Winchester, Pennsylvania mastering plant, which I would love to get to pop. Son of a bitch. It's up there at like midnight, but it won't come out. It's a triangle with a line coming from it. Some people think it looks like a wine glass. It actually represents a rifle, because the plant is in Winchester, Pennsylvania, and the rifle, there it is. It's at midnight. So I don't know if you can see that or not. There, it popped. So it's a triangle with a line coming out of the top of the point. That represents a rifle for Winchester, Pennsylvania. Winchester being a famous American rifle maker. So that means this record was made at the Winchester Capitol plant. So sorry that took so long. It's like a minute and a half of looking at blurry images, but it's worth it in the end, isn't it? And you know, an interesting suggestion. I mean, if you're a gun nut or a member of the NRA, you know, from my cold dead hands, and you love your weapons, you might want to augment that by collecting Winchester stamped vinyl, because it's got the little gun on it. Finally, oh, and where did I get these records? I got the Ecstasy of Rita from a friend of mine who owns a record store. I think I paid $10 for that. The George Benson came free in a box. The Supersax I bought for $2 at a thrift. And then finally I have Pearl Jam 10, or Pearl Jam, this is kind of called Pearl Jam Redux, or Redo, or I don't know how I'm supposed to say that. This is the 2 vinyl version of the record that came out. So this is the first one here. This is a vinyl. This came out in 2009 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Pearl Jam's 10. And this is the 10 version. And this doesn't have any markings in it that I can make much sense of in the Deadwax's, except it's got a U and a circle, which I'm not quite sure what that means. But I think it means the vinyl was made at United. But I'll have to do more research on that one. So that's 10 on vinyl. How does it sound? You know, I didn't buy this record, actually. I got this record sent to me for free. I bought a sealed copy of Pearl Jam's first record on vinyl. I bought it as part of an auction on a website to help pay for the site's server bills. I bought that, and I bought another one. And I got them, and I never opened them. They're in my sealed vinyl collection, but they're both first pressings. And then, like, a couple months later, 6-8 months later, the guy wrote me and he said, I didn't send you your record, so I mailed it off to you. And I said, I got the record. It's in my sealed collection. Everything's great. He says, oh, well, I mailed the record off to you. So I said, well, I'll mail it back to you when it gets here. And he says, no, keep it. Don't worry about it. He says, I don't know how I got confused. So he sent me this, which is like, it wasn't sealed, and it was the 2009 20th anniversary. Here's Pearl Jam 10 Redux. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. And this is Pearl Jam had an engineer on this record, and then on every record since then they've had the same guy, and I think his name's O'Brien. I probably got that wrong. It's probably Brian O something. And they'd always wanted him to remix Pearl Jam and remix 10, and he'd always said no. And then for this, he said, "I'll do it if it goes out as an accompaniment. I won't remix it if that's what you plan on releasing on its own." And this has on this one, it has Sterling in the Deadwax's. It has Sterling RJ in the Deadwax's, and RJ stands for the mastering engineer Ray Janos. So. What can I say? I mean, this is an album that I really liked it when it came out, but it wasn't a pivotal album in my life the way 10 is for people that are, say, like 10 years younger than me. For those people, Pearl Jam's 10, for a lot of them, was a really big album. It also comes with this round kind of promotional flat. So for those people, this album is massively important in their musical history, the way records are to me from a different period. But I really liked this record when it came out because I wasn't necessarily a massive fan of certain types of grunge, but I did like this record. And I haven't really stuck with Pearl Jam since. What can I say about the record? The original record on vinyl here is presented a little compressed, but the original CD was a little compressed, but it had some dynamic range in it, which has subsequently been totally brickwalled to shit on subsequent re-release. Every time they re-release 10, they just take less and less dynamic range out of it. The Redux, it takes away most of the reverb from the record. It really makes the lyrics, the vocals, totally clear. There is no, your grandmother could listen to this record and catch every single lyric. You don't have to intently listen. His voice is just floating right there. And it separates the instruments a bit more too, and that's just a factor of, I think, the reverb being taken out. Unfortunately, well, it sounds good. It's actually a really interesting mix. I don't think the record would have been the success it was in 1991 if this mix had been the mix that was released then. It loses some of its edge. but unfortunately it is just compressed as shit. So they took this interesting mix and they applied 2009, final mixdown mastering techniques to it, which just means, run it all up here, clipping the shit out of it. So sadly, it's it's not as bad as a new Rush, but they kind of ruined it. And supposedly all of the new Pearl Jam remasters are just this garbage CD level brick-walled mastering, clip to shit stuff. It also came with these nice poly-lined inners, which I replaced with my own. So, the tin is, I got this for free. Well, I did pay like $50 for the sealed original, but I got this, and the guy didn't want it back, and it's an interesting document to have had the experience of listening to. This is okay. I'm not keeping this. It's a little rough, and it's not quite my bag, but it is good enough to go to somebody else. This will never be a part of my life. I feel sorry for the 8 minutes I spent listening to it already. And I'll keep this around for a while and see if I ever go back to it. So Daniel, those are your records. Thank you very much for playing along, and have a great day, everybody. Keep the record spinning.